Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Eddie Francis. I serve as the interim Chief Communications Officer here at Talladega College. We really appreciate your time this afternoon. And the purpose of today's press briefing is pretty straightforward. We wanted to be able to give an idea of the progress that we have made at the college since the fall. And also we wanted to be able to give an idea of what the path forward is looking like, while at the same time expressing what we still have to do, the work that we still have to do here at Talladega College. You're going to hear from three leaders this afternoon. First, you're going to hear from the Board of Trustees Chair, Rika Lewis-Payton. Also, you're going to hear from the Interim President, Dr. Walter Kimbrough, as well as the CEO of Hope Enterprise Corporation, Hope Credit Union, Mr. Bill Bynum. So we will get started with Board Chair Rika Lewis-Payton.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. And good afternoon. I see some familiar faces, and so it is good to see you all and the interest related to our beloved institution. As was stated, I am Rika Lewis-Payton, and I am a proud alumna of Talladega College. And I have the honor of serving as the chair of the Board of Trustees. Since May of 2024, the Board of Trustees has been working alongside the dedicated administration, faculty, and staff of Talladega College. We have taken significant and deliberate steps to improve the financial health of our beloved institution. We established our path forward back in May, focusing on 4 strategic priorities. The first was financial integrity and stability. The second, institutional advancement and fundraising. Third, academic excellence and accreditation. And the fourth, student enrollment and engagement. While the work has been challenging, for me, it's personal. As a first-generation college graduate almost 45 years ago, I, like so many like me, owe our personal growth and professional success to Talladega College. This institution has stood for over 150 years as a beacon of light, and it is imperative that it remains for many generations to come, and we are committed and highly motivated to ensure that it does. Along with the challenges, though, are incredible opportunities, and I am more optimistic than ever about the future of this historic institution and our commitment to build back better. We are not alone in this commitment, as evident by the recent $15 million investment from Hope Credit Union. You will hear more about this from Hope's CEO, Bill Bynum, who is with us this afternoon. This investment is a testament for their confidence in Talladega's future, and we are grateful that he could join us. We must be clear, however, there is much work to be done. We extend our deepest gratitude to our esteemed Talladega College alumni and supporters. Their unwavering dedication and generosity have been instrumental in our journey, and we are continuing to need and depend on them. I am also grateful to the team at Hope Credit Union, who recognizes the importance of Talladega College in higher education and this community. We are profoundly thankful for their continued faith in our institution and their significant financial investment. As we look ahead, particularly to the first weekend in May, when over 120 students will graduate, and our alumni from all across the nation will converge on these hallowed grounds for boots on battle. To them and all that love Talladega College, we issue a call to action. We need your continued support, your renewed commitment, and your passionate advocacy. Together, we can ensure that Talladega College not only endures, but flourishes for generations to come. Thank you all for being here, and we look forward to addressing any questions that you may have at the end of the presentations and other comments by our leaders. So, Dr. Kimbrough.
Good afternoon, everyone. Let me just take a few minutes to talk about some of the things that we've been able to do. As the chair said, we wanted to meet with the media in September just to give sort of a 90-day synopsis of the work that has been done. The board really came in last May to really step up to address some of the issues. I then came here at the end of June to help try to lead the institution forward, and a lot has been accomplished. As we mentioned back then, one of the priorities was to right-size the institution. We had a reduction in force, a number of people that we had, as well as a tiered salary reduction for faculty and staff to make sure that that would work. We've continued to work through that. If we had natural attrition, if there were positions that became vacant, it gave us an opportunity to figure out, is this a position that we need to continue separately, or do you fold it into existing positions? So we're able to do that to continue to maintain our payroll at a much more manageable level. One of the things that we've done that has really gotten a lot of attention in the media was the sports programs, first with gymnastics, and then recently we announced the reduction of several other sports. I'll refer you to an editorial I wrote in Alabama.com that really talked about that and the state of college athletics today. As a matter of fact, yesterday the Alabama Independent Colleges met in Montgomery. And so several private institutions were talking about the state of college athletics. It's a challenge for a lot of people. And if you look at the stories nationwide, and as I indicated in that article, you have major programs like Ohio State University, which is one I like to mention the most because they just won a national championship in football, and they have a multi-million-dollar deficit in athletics. So those are things that are helping us to right size. We're also then been going through a process of what I call remedying relationships that we've had. We've had a number of federal grants over the last few years that we really need to work back with those federal partners to either restructure those grant opportunities or find new ways to implement those projects. And they've been really great for us. So for example, we have a grant with the Department of Commerce that they gave us an extension, a no-cost extension, to be able to keep building out that program. We're working on a cyber program. So that was really good for that federal partner. We've been working with USDA that's provided loans for 2 of our newer facilities on campus. So we've had a number of conversations with them. So we really had great support from all of our federal partners, including the Department of Education, to say, we understand the situation with Talladega College. Here are the things that we can help you do. I've spent many trips in Washington, D.C. meeting with those partners, and they've been very receptive. So I'm very thankful to them and want to thank them publicly at this point in time. The third area is that we looked at revenue and additional ways to deal with our revenue. One of the things that we did not have in place was a collection agency. This is standard in higher education. If you have people who graduate who owe you money, you work with a collection agency. So we started that process. But even internally, we tried to figure out to say, if we have students that have a balance, is there a way that we could really reduce that? So in the fall, we created a team of people all across the campus in different areas to say, if we have about $1 million that students have on their accounts, how do we get that down? So in the fall, we were able to get it from about $1 million to less than $100,000 in a couple of months, just really reaching out and engaging the students. We did the same thing this semester as well. So it's a good project for us to have. It's a problem a lot of places as well. As you may remember, I served for 10 years as president of Dillard University in New Orleans, and one of our sister institutions there, the University of New Orleans, has a major financial challenge right now. And one of their challenges is the student accounts receivable. So they're trying to figure out how to do basically what we did, and we did very successfully. So I'm very proud of that. And then also, we're in the final stages of being able to apply for the employee retention tax credit. So we've also engaged a consultant who will help us do that, which can generate several $1 million for the institution. And that will happen over a period, I think he told us, 9 to 14 months. But I was at a meeting with other UNCF institutions in Washington, D.C. last month, and they were receiving $2, $3, $4 million as a part of this. And basically, if you operated during the pandemic, you had people on payroll, you're eligible for an employee retention tax credit. So we're exploring that process. So hopefully, at some point in time next academic year, the college will benefit from that. So we're excited about that strategy. The fourth item I want to mention is that we're starting to engage in forward-looking things. As the the chair of the board talks about building back better. We have to figure out what kinds of new strategies will we use to build back better. We started to engage a firm called Ruffalo Noel Levis. They're experts in terms of enrollment management. And they did, for us pro bono, a visit to campus in the fall. They spent 2 days looking at opportunities for us in terms of how do we grow our enrollment. In fact, they're going to do a presentation for our board at the end of this month or early next month to be able to talk about what kind of ways they can assist us moving forward as we look for our niche in this market. So we're really excited about working with them. Related to that, there is a local firm out of Birmingham called Wilbron. They focus on marketing and public relations. Once again, pro bono work, having conversations with leaders on the campus to say, how do we think differently about Talladega? What's our space? What kinds of things can we do to stand out in this market? So we are just thankful for that partnership. Again, pro bono work that they've done with us as well. The chair also mentioned the work that we're doing with UNCF and a consulting firm called CCS. For the private HBCUs, there are 37 members of UNCF. We're working on a pooled endowment program. UNCF has already raised $5 million per institution, so we will benefit from that. Starting this spring, we'll get a dividend from that. They want each institution to raise an additional $5 million as a match, but for us, we're going to go above and beyond that. We're able to use these consulting services to help us with our immediate needs. So as a matter of fact, today they're doing another presentation for our board to say this is the work that we're going to do as we move forward to help us with the structure to move forward with that campaign. So that's another great thing that we're going to do as a part of our membership in UNCF. And then the final thing I'll mention, which is a fun thing, a number of us were in Anniston recently. As you may have heard, the actor and comedian Cat Williams has the base there and is about to build out this entire entertainment program. So for us thinking about how do we build this as another opportunity for our students, we want to be there on the ground floor. So a couple of weeks ago, we toured the facility with his team. One of the members of his team spoke for our faculty in January to say, here are some academic programs that you can help students who want to get into this industry. So we want to be involved in that. So we are thinking forward to say, here becomes an opportunity for us as they build this from the ground up, that Talladega is a part of that process as well. And then the final thing I'll mention before I turn it over to Mr. Bynum is that we're in the final stages of building out or stabilizing our leadership. We should be announcing, hopefully within the next week or so, the finalists to be the next president of Talladega College. We had about 80 people apply for that position, which I've looked at a number of searches. That's a tremendous number. It speaks highly to how people in the higher education community value this institution. So I was really excited. We received more applications than some larger institutions. So that was really good. I have a pleasure of serving on the search committee. Actually, I told the chair I had to be. That was one of my I didn't have too many demands, but that was one because I'm actually doing the job and I want to make sure we get somebody who really understands what this job is about. We've had very experienced, seasoned leaders as a part of our pool. So I'm really excited about the future. We're going to have a first-rate president for this institution as we continue to work through this process. And so with that, let me once again introduce Bill Bynum, who is the CEO of Hope Enterprise Corporation and Hope Credit Union, to come forward and make some remarks.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Hope is a very different financial institution. We exist to ensure that people in the Deep South and under-resourced communities have the tools they need to realize their potential. Yes, we are a financial institution. We're a credit union. We are, as a matter of fact, one of the largest and most impactful community development financial institutions in the country. CDFIs, or community development financial institutions, are not traditional. We go into communities that unfortunately are not as consistently served by the mainstream financial institutions. We are supported by some of the major banks in the country. I serve on advisory boards for Goldman Sachs and Wells Fargo and Bank of America. So they know that organizations like Hope help fill in gaps that are not filled by traditional financial institutions. But as I said, we exist to ensure that to improve the financial health in under-resourced communities across the Deep South. So many places in our region are not as well resourced as in other parts of the country. And so we have found that we can really make a significant difference. We've done that for almost 30 years. We've helped over 3 million people across the Deep South access resources to become homeowners, become business owners, to realize their potential. And when you think about it, climbing the economic ladder, reaching their potential is what institutions like Talladega College do so well. I think disproportionately they do that better than any other institution in the country. When you think about the communities they serve, where they're located, and the people who thrive and come through these institutions and go on to lead this country. And so as a financial institution, as a community financial institution, we bet on organizations that are leaders and help advance the prosperity in their communities. And I just want to acknowledge and applaud the leadership of Talladega for what you just heard and the progress that they have made to advance this institution forward. When we looked at the opportunity to invest in Talladega, it was a no-brainer. As we look at our work at Hope, we invest in what we call anchor institutions that play a significant role in advancing prosperity in communities like this, like Talladega. When we talked to the leadership, it was clear they had a clear strategy for moving the institution forward. We looked at the financials, and the numbers will tell you one thing, but when you talk to people and you have a plan, it's what happens after the plan gets off the paper. It takes leadership to make the right decisions and to move the institution forward. And so we were very impressed with the leadership here at Talladega. It was very clear that they knew what it would take to navigate their way through the challenges that the institution has faced. And as you heard today, they're on a great path forward. And so we were glad to make an investment in Talladega. We have made investments in HBCUs, historically black college universities, across the Deep South, many here in Alabama and Mississippi, Arkansas, Louisiana, and Tennessee, which is our footprint. We know that the work they do is critical to our success as an institution, and not just to Hope's success, or the success of Talladega, but the success of the state, the region, and the entire country. I think pound for pound, no one does more with less than HBCUs. And so it's a bet that we're glad to make at Hope. And I wager that the $15 million loan that we made is not only a good investment, it's not the last investment that we plan to make in Talladega. So thank you. We look forward to continuing to be your partner. Thank you.
So we'll now open it up for questions for our friends from the media who are here for Board Chair Lewis Payton, Interim President Kimbrell, or Mr. Bynum. Do we have any questions?
I have a question for Dr. Kimbrell. Hi.
Hey.
The $50 million loan, I guess at this point, do you have any idea, how that funding is going to be used, how you're hoping to use it to support Talladega?
Yeah, so the main thing that we did, and we applied for the loan, and I think we shared some of this back in September, we wanted to consolidate the debt that the institution had from the previous couple of years. And so they gave us a way to sort of consolidate that, refinance that, and then really make sure we catch up with those vendors. So that's been very helpful. So that was the point of that, to really get us back on good footing with those vendors that we're working with. And then it gives us a chance now to say, how do we now take this new package and then pay that out and pay it back responsibly? So that's what we've done with that.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
And I know you said it's been since about last May. I think you guys have really kind of buckled down to address these issues. I don't know if you have like any numbers, or you can talk a little bit about how much success you guys have had up to this point in eliminating that debt.
Yeah, so like I said, that part helps us to restructure that. But there, in terms of some of the numbers, and we've been mentioning this. So for example, last year, an average monthly payroll might be $1.3, $1.4 million. This year, it's been max about $1 million, $900,000. So you start saving $300,000 to $400,000 a month over the course of this year, that gives you an idea that that's several $1 million that will be saved just being responsible with our payroll. That's one of the key things that, you know, we've been able to see. We'll start to realize some additional savings from some of the other sports. For gymnastics, for example, we probably saved about $300,000 because it's a non-revenue generating sport. The example I've been using with alums is that the University of Alabama's gymnastics team loses $1.9 million a year. But nobody knows because every Saturday in the fall, the Tide's on the field and they're making all kinds of money. We don't have any way to offset that. So for us, it was just, it's an expense. You know, it's nice to have, but we're not in a situation just to fund a program like that. So those are some of the ways that, you know, we're trying to manage our finances. So those are some clear numbers. But as a part of that $15 million package, it's really just to look at some of that debt, refinance that, and have it under one umbrella, if you will, and then pay it out responsibly. Okay.
And has having to minimize or kind of consolidate some of these athletics had any impact on student life, student enrollment, things like that in your life?
Yeah, it's small. So if you look at, if we take gymnastics, which was cut at the beginning of the year, 16 students. So small. So, I mean, a few students, but you spend a lot of money. The programs that we're looking at, indoor track, which mostly students who run outdoor track will run both. So all you're doing is really eliminating the cost to go compete in those meets. It's not to say that we probably will maybe look at going back to that at some point in time, but just at this point in time, golf, you're talking about a handful of students, once again, with the expenses. We have a tumbling team, 15 students, and they'll actually, some of those will fold in and just really participate in our competitive cheer. So in terms of the students or student life, and particularly most of those sports, they aren't things that you would even see on campus as well. Men's volleyball would have been one, but that was a challenge that because it really competes as a Division II, NCAA Division II sport, and we don't have NCAA Division II, and we don't have it in our athletic conference. So one of the things that we try to do is make sure we're sponsoring sports that our athletic conference sponsors. Right now, we're in 3 different athletic conferences paying 3 sets of dues. And that's part of it. So in terms of, you know, our major sports on campus, that life is still there. And maybe at some point in time, the institution will add, you know, additional sports, but we're just trying to follow the lead of our athletic conference. Our conference is actually going to add soccer. We already have soccer, which is great. So we don't have to, we just continue to do what we've been doing. Okay.
Just one. Will Talladega still be an institution where students can come get an affordable education, where they see increase in tuition rates?
Absolutely. We haven't planned to do a tuition increase for this year, which I think is good. We'll continue to make sure we look at that. One of the, I think, the aspects that Talladega really tries to pride itself on for years is to make sure it's affordable, even as a private institution. And I've looked at the private institutions in the state, particularly for the HBCUs, who are probably in the mid-range, but for private institutions in the state, we're really at the much more affordable levels when you start looking at the others in the state. So I think we have a decent price point for us. At some point in time, I think the institution will look at, like everyone does, particularly with some of the things that are happening now with the tariffs and everything, it's going to impact some things that we do. So I think you're gonna have a lot of people in higher ed try to figure out how do we respond to that. So not for us this year, but it's not to say that the institution won't over time, because I think everybody has to continue to look at that. But even with that, I think our price point based on, you know, this state, I think is still very competitive.
I know it's kind of uncomfortable to kind of check yourself. But going through this process, what has this institution learned from within going forward?
I probably want to turn it over to the chair first to sort of see, because I'm here on right on special assignment. I'll just say a couple of things in terms of, for me, I ended up here because my wife attended school here. And as I tell people, she don't like the way I tell the story, but this is the way I tell the story. The chair called me. She said, "Hey, would you be interested in being the interim?" I talked to my wife, and she said, "Yeah, that's my school." And she kicked me out the house. I was here 2 weeks later. So I've always had an appreciation for Talladega based on her and people she went to school with. And we just saw a period where we sort of got off track from the things that we have done historically. Looking at the institution in the 1930s and 1940s, someone could graduate from Talladega, go to graduate school at the University of Chicago without having to take a test, because they were like, this is where this institution was. So the DNA is still there to me. We just got to get back and start being true to the DNA of Talladega College. And if we do that, we'll be in good situation. I just think that for me, I think the institution sort of got away from that over a period of time. But I think with the leadership of the board and the chair, they understand that this DNA really has produced a lot of great people. Even as late as the 1990s, early 2000s. How do we get back to that? So for me, it's, you might call it a come to Jesus meeting. We just have to look to say, we got off track. How do we get back on track and be true to the DNA of this institution? So that's the 2 cents that I would add. But I'll ask the chair to add to that.
Thank you. I can always depend on Reggie for a tough question. I would say 2 things, internal controls and accountability. As a former CEO, I always subscribe to the notion, because I was on the administrative side, you hire for leadership qualities and you let them do their job, right? And so we came from that perspective. In addition to that, in some entities, and higher education is one of them, SAC-COC looks very closely at the governance versus the administrative and leadership, and there are some parameters under which we have to operate relative to where does governance begin and end compared to the leadership and management. But what I have learned through this process is that the internal controls must be present, and the board must demand that they be in place, because that's what set the parameters under which they operate. The second thing is that we have to trust but verify. That's that accountability piece. So it's not enough to just tell me, I need to see it. And so those are the 2 things when I look at the years that I've served on the board, where we had the greatest opportunity to improve, and we're now putting into place those internal controls and accountability systems and processes.
Do we have any other questions? Yes, Chris.
Yeah, what impact, if any, do you all anticipate from changes at the federal level, specifically doing away with the Department of Education and the Pell Grants that come through that department?
Yeah, this is when I'm gonna make a couple of comments and then turn it to the president. One of the great things about having Dr. Kimbrough's leadership is that he's very well connected and respected in the education arena, and quite frankly is a thought leader in that regard, and so I leave the really details of that to him. Just in general, a couple of comments. One is that I went through a period where I didn't want to watch the news, but the reality is that we have to understand to some extent what's going on and determine how we can best position the people and the institutions that we care about. And so for us, it's being attuned to what's going on out there, but taking care of what I say is the main thing for us, which is staying focused on those core responsibilities that we have relative to students, and making sure that the people who are here, the faculty, the staff that's supporting the administrators, yes, watch what's going on, position us as best you can, but at the same token, keep everybody focused on the job that is here right now, because that is where the rubber meets the road. Mr. President.
So we've been following very closely the developments through UNCF, and I just found out this morning the public HBCUs met with members of Congress yesterday, including Secretary of Education Linda McMahon, to really share that. Hopefully the private colleges will have the same opportunity in the near future. And so everybody's trying to figure out how will this impact the programs, particularly the scholarship programs and the loan programs that we have. We've been assured time and time again that those key programs for us, like Pell Grants, will not be impacted. So we're watching it. It's a trust and verify situation with that as well with the federal government to make sure that those things don't change. We haven't seen any real impact, even though you've seen some in higher ed. If you pay attention to it right now, the targets are the Ivy League institutions. So they're really, having to figure out what's their space. But for our institutions right now, those programs are still in place. There are a lot of people in Congress that value the work, particularly the HBCUs do. There's a bipartisan HBCU caucus. They always do a good job. And I just tell people that HBCUs are one of the few entities that get true bipartisan support. The chair and I met with Representative Mike Rogers in his office in Oxford last month, I guess it was, to try to get support. I've also met with the staffs of Senators Britt and Tuberville. So everybody's still on the same page. They know what our issues are, and if we see that there are going to be some challenges, we'll work with our congressional delegation on that. So we don't expect that at this point in time, but we'll continue to monitor it. But I still feel good about it, and I haven't heard any warning signs, and I'm in contact with UNCF Governmental Affairs team pretty regularly.
All right. Do you have any other questions? Well, if we don't have any other questions and any other closing remarks, then we will go ahead and close out this afternoon. For the folks who've watched online, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for everyone for being here this afternoon. We appreciate you.
Can I get y'all in front of the backdrop real quick for a picture?